Well, I think the key to remember, and obviously there are some differences in the way that Golden State went about it and the way the Sixers went about it, although frequently forgotten part is that Golden State did tank as hard as they could in 2012 because they were about to give up a top 7 protected first-round pick if they didn't. But I think it's easy to forget how long of a process that was. I mean, you're talking about a team that in Stephen Curry's rookie season, and, if you want to kind of draw the parallel of maybe Curry to, Joel Embiid being the Sixers version of Curry, they won 26 games in Golden State's first year. They won 36 games. It wasn't until Curry's 4th season with the team that they finally had a winning record. So really the point was more that, these things take time. And even when you hit on the draft and you hit really as good as you can in the draft in Stephen Curry, you're not going to find many selections, period, but especially where he was, drafted 7th overall. You're not going to find many better than him. But even with that, it takes time. It took until they drafted Klay Thompson, until they drafted Harrison Barnes, until they drafted Draymond Green and really developed those players for it to really work out. So, I mean, we're at the very beginning of the process, and I think sometimes, the success failure of it, we look at it on a day-to-day thing. And, is trading Michael CarterWilliams a step back? Well, it's probably in the long run not all that relevant. But it's going to take time. It's like I said, we're too, I think, focused in the day-to-day sometimes. You've got to wait for these pieces to develop and play out.
So how long would you say, when did it start for them as to where it is now? How long was that process for Golden State?
Well, like I said, it was really Curry's 4th year before they really had a winning record. I think they won 47 games that year, and then they increased to low 50s and then in the 60s. So I think it's really once you get Embiid, he starts looking like a superstar, and you get a piece or two around him. Like I said, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. I think if you're looking at this as really Curry's rookie year in Joel Embiid, I think this year you're going to see, again, probably something like 26, 27 wins, and then maybe mid-30s, and then after that it's going to go up quickly. So I think you'll see progress. I think you'll see an increase in win total. But I think that, it's going to take time. They're not going to jump from, 18 wins to 50 wins. It's just not going to happen.
Derek Bodner's with us. Let's jump into Derek's mailbag this week, some of the questions that came your day. What are the chances the Sixers get that Lakers pick next year? What are some of the scenarios for that Lakers pick?
Well, I think it's a very good chance to get the Lakers pick next year. It's top 3 protected next year. So as long as it falls anywhere outside of 4, I think it's going to convey to the Sixers. I don't necessarily see the Lakers making the playoffs next year, almost under any scenario. I think they can go out. Kevin Love could opt out of the final year of his deal. He could sign with the Lakers, which I think is a crazy assumption to make. Rondo could go sign with the Lakers. I still don't see them as a playoff team in the West. So I think it's going to be, a lottery pick. I think it's probably going to be a top 10 pick, and unless they really do something in free agency, probably a top 7 pick. I don't have a whole lot of faith in that Los Angeles Lakers team or their management group. And yeah, they have cap space, but I see that pick being very good next year.
Yeah, that's and that would go back to the question regarding Michael Carter-Williams. If people are watching him now, I got tweets asking me, well, am I still on board with that pick? If that Lakers pick is a top 10 pick, you're probably still on board with that scenario, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got those tweets after he had a good game, but were those tweets there during the first 4 games of the season when he shot 38%? Probably not. We have a very selective memory in that regard, and if you liked Michael Carter-Williams and you look at this game, if you didn't like him, then you look at the previous games. To me, he still is what he is. And if that pick's a top 10 pick, you hope it's a pretty good draft next year. Then yeah, I do still like that trade.
What about taking a look back at the JaVale McGee deal? Some people scratching their heads at that once the Sixers didn't get that Oklahoma City pick. Is that deal now something that you question?
Well, it's certainly not the best outcome for it. I still think that you do that. I mean, the Sixers, even after that JaVale McGee trade, and they took on, I think, $12 million in McGee's contract for next season, even after that, they have $31 million in cap space. So it's not like they're going to be strapped for cash. They can still go out, even after that trade, offer a maximum contract to a guy like Kawhi Leonard or Jimmy Butler or Draymond Green or even Chris Middleton. They still have plenty of room to do that, so it hasn't hurt them in any capacity. So it was still basically a free first-round pick. They had to spend that money to get to the floor. That spent money on McGee isn't going to impact them this offseason. So it's still a free pick. You would have liked that pick to be 19. It's probably going to be 26, 27, 28 next year. But I think the reasoning behind that was still good. If you were a game away from that pick or however many, a couple of games away from getting the 19th pick in the draft, and you take that chance, and the downside is it's going to be, in the mid to late 20s next year, I still think it was the right move to make.
That being said, Derek, do you then suppose that the Sixers will consolidate picks at some point and start to give away assets, something they have tried so hard to acquire?
Yeah, no, I think there's certainly a possibility that, I think the way I phrase it is eventually he's going to look to James Harden, a superstar. And it's a deal very similar to, what he helped accomplish over in Houston to get James Harden there, where they collected assets, let those assets appreciate in value, and then combine them into, as a package for a superstar like James Harden. Now, I'm not sure if you're going to get a superstar of the quality of James Harden, because those kind of young players rarely become available, and that was kind of the perfect storm of events to allow a player of Harden's quality to become available. But yeah, I think, this season when Embiid starts developing, when whoever they draft in the 2015 draft starts developing, they might look to get that third impact player, the player who they think, Embiid is going to develop. Let's say Russell or whoever they target is going to develop. They want to get that third guy. And I think they could start pushing some of their chips to the table and using some of these future draft picks to then acquire a third really good player.
Derek Bodner here on 97.3 ESPN. For more in the mailbag, go to 97.3ESPN.com. Derek, let's talk about, moving forward here for Philadelphia, the big board in the draft. We know where they are at 3. A lot of people suggesting DeAngelo Russell is the guy they want. Do you buy that that's the guy that they're targeting?
I think that's a very logical conclusion. Yeah. They obviously need guard play. They need guards who can shoot, guards who can create. He is, one of the best shooters in this draft. He's one of the best players in this draft at a position of need. So I think he fits both talent and positional needs. Whether or not he's the guy that they're targeting, I'm not sure that information is out there. I think, this is the time of year, not quite like the NFL draft, but this is the time of year where misinformation becomes key. But I think it's a very logical conclusion to reach.
All right, Derek, let's take a quick look. How much does the Love injury impact what you thought maybe of Cleveland? Is this a detrimental blow to them, or do you think they are still the favorite in the East?
Yeah, well, certainly I think, Kevin Love was not quite what they hoped he would be this season. He struggled to fit in at times. But he's still a very good player, a very good rebounder, and he spaces that floor, which is key for guys like LeBron and Kyrie. I certainly think this hurts their chances. I wouldn't call them done. I still think if they're not the favorite, they're right up there. But especially with Toronto's tailspin down the stretch, I'm not completely bought into Washington yet. They're still one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, if not the best team in the Eastern Conference.
All right, let's look at some of the matchups that are still very intriguing. San Antonio Clippers. I was surprised, Derek, that the Clippers, that showed me a little something. I've always kind of been down on the Clippers, but them going into San Antonio and winning maybe changed my mind a tiny bit. I still go San Antonio, but do you like L.A. to get this one and win this series? Yeah, no, this from a basketball fan perspective, this has been a series that has really kind of saved the first round of the playoffs Definitely.
for you. This has been by far the most entertaining series, and you're right. I would have leaned towards San Antonio. I still probably lean towards San Antonio, but it is, it's probably as close to a toss-up as you can get. They're two very different teams with two very different types of quote-unquote stars. I think San Antonio's depth is a little bit better. I think that will ultimately win out for them. But this has been the saving grace for the NBA playoffs, because that first round has been a lot of 4-0, a lot of 5-game series, and this has been incredibly entertaining to watch.
What about Brooklyn? They got a shot against Atlanta?
You know what? They do. Again, I think Atlanta has a better chance than the other series. I think Atlanta is still the clearest favorite. But Brooklyn has surprised me. I didn't expect this coming from them at all. They struggled at the beginning of March and then really turned it on late in the season to get one of those last two playoff spots. This has been, the series that I don't think anybody really expected, and Atlanta kind of struggled down the stretch after they didn't really have a whole lot of to play for. I still think Atlanta pulls this out, but Brooklyn's right there. They played a heck of a series.
Hey, I saw this piece that you wrote about the Celtics, and they could be interested in getting rid of Wallace's contract. Would the Sixers be a match for that type of situation?
Yeah, well, again, like I said, the Sixers have $31 million in cap space going into next season. Wallace makes just a shade over $10 million. So even after that, they would still have $20 million of cap space. They would still have, room to either try to make a splash in free agency, which I don't really expect them to be able to, or then use that cap space to, acquire more draft picks throughout the season and at the trade deadline. So they still have plenty of room to make a move like this. For Boston, it allows them to keep some of. Basically, Boston's situation is in order to be able to go out and sign a really big-name free agent, they're going to have to renounce the rights to Brandon Bass. So I think this move is more to allow them to keep Bass and still be a player in free agency. So I think, their desire is to make a move like this. And for the Sixers, again, it's probably their draft picks that Boston has that they'd probably be willing to give up aren't the greatest. They obviously had the Clippers pick this year. They have a Mavericks pick coming up. I think, you're hoping to get one of Boston's upcoming picks or one of the Brooklyn upcoming picks, but I'm not sure if that's really in play, if they're going to want to move one of their lesser picks. Again, this would be kind of expensive in terms of what we normally think of buying a late first-round pick, but it's also something that since the Sixers are going to have to pay that money to get to the floor anyway, that I could see them having interest in.
He's Derek Bodner at Derek Bodner NBA. For more, go to 973ESPN.com. He's got the mailbag up there. He's got the piece on the Sixers and Warriors and some other stuff that will be up shortly. And the NBA playoffs continue this weekend on 97.3 ESPN. Derek, thanks, man.
Yep, thank you.